You never realize the exact moment you sell your soul. It is not a dramatic contract signed in blood. It is just a cold beer, a pat on the back, and someone finally looking at you like you matter. Before the leather vests, before the roar of 50 engines shaking the pavement, you were just a ghost. Growing up in a house where silence was heavier than the shouting, you learned to be invisible. You dropped out at 17. Your hands were permanently stained with grease from a dead-end salvage yard, wondering if you were destined to rust away, too. You were so desperately, agonizingly lonely, you would have paid any price for a family. And the club, they smelled that hunger on you. Your father fixed trucks, but he was never really there. He was just a shape in a recliner, the television volume maxed out like he was trying to drown out his own life. Your mother worked the register at a hardware store until her back finally gave out. You had no safety net, no college fund, just a raw, natural talent for understanding engines. You could hear a misfire in a motor the way a trained musician hears a flat note in a symphony. But in Central California, nobody cares about that skill. Not yet. Then Ratchet walked into the salvage yard. You were 22 years old. He was riding a '98 Harley Softail, and it sounded like it was chewing on its own timing chain. He had the leather vest, the gray beard, the patches that commanded the room. You fixed his bike in 4 hours flat. He did not say much. He just paid and left. But he came back the next week. And the next. By the fourth visit, there was no broken bike. He just brought a six-pack of cheap beer, sat on an overturned crate, and talked to you. He asked about your life. He asked if you had ever ridden a motorcycle. You had not. The next Saturday, he brought you a beat-up Sportster. A deep sense of curiosity started to bloom in your chest. Why me? Out of all the mechanics in the valley, why was this patched member spending his weekends teaching a scrapyard kid how to ride? But you did not ask. You were just grateful. Within a month, you were invited to the clubhouse. It was a converted warehouse at the end of a dirt road. Inside, it was a different world. Pool tables, the smell of stale beer, a row of Harleys parked outside like war horses. When you walked in, men in leather turned and nodded. For the first time in your entire life, a room full of people looked genuinely glad that you showed up. That feeling right there, that is the exact product they are selling. But joining is not free. You had to prospect. Prospecting is 12 months of being absolute dirt. You cleaned the clubhouse toilets with a toothbrush. You emptied overflowing ashtrays. You stood at the front door during massive parties, stone cold sober for 8 hours straight while everyone else drank. You learned flexibility. You adapted to whatever humiliating task they threw at you, bending your pride until it almost snapped just to prove you were loyal. One night, a heavy-set member named Kubal sent you on a 2-hour drive in the freezing rain to pick up a specific pizza. You brought it back, shivering, the box soaking wet. He took it, did not even open it, and threw it straight into the trash can. The test was never about the pizza. The test was whether you would blindly obey. And you did. On a Thursday night, they voted you in. Ratchet handed you the vest, the death head patch, the bottom rocker, 2 pounds of leather that felt infinitely heavier than it should. Ratchet pulled you aside, his eyes dead serious. He said, "This patch means every man in this room would go to federal prison before giving up your name." It sounded like a beautiful promise. You did not realize it was actually a price tag. For 2 years, it was paradise. Weekend rides through the valley, 50 bikes deep. Barbecues where everyone's kids played together. The club set you up with a real garage, real tools, obese lift. Your name was painted on the sign outside. You were useful, and you belonged. You mistakenly believed those two things were the same. But then, you started noticing the cracks. A saddlebag dropped off at your shop that was far too heavy to just be clothes. A sealed box placed in your back room. The unwritten rule of the club screamed in your head. Do not look. Do not ask. Then came the meeting with Deacon, the chapter president. Deacon did not look like a biker. He talked like a regional manager of a Fortune 500 company. Calm, friendly, calculated. He sat you down and explained that the club had business interests. Methamphetamine moving through 3 counties. Protection rackets on a string of dive bars. Gun sales. He told you that your garage would start processing some cash. Just enough to need fake invoices. He asked if you were comfortable with that. But you knew the question was purely decorative. You do not say no to Deacon. The club was not a brotherhood anymore. It was a corporation. Then a member named Dice got arrested. He was caught with enough meth to qualify for heavy federal time. The club's golden rule was simple. If you go down for the club, we take care of your family. For 3 months, Deacon sent money to Dice's wife. Month 4, the amount dropped. Month 6, it stopped completely. When you confronted Deacon about it, a cold, visceral fear crept down your spine. He looked at you with dead eyes and said, "Resources are allocated based on operational value, and Dice is not operational anymore." That one sentence destroyed everything you thought the patch meant. You started sending Dice's wife $500 a month from your own cut. Secretly. It was not charity. It was insurance. Because you desperately wanted to believe that if you went down, someone would do the same for you. Things escalated. The rival club started pushing into your territory. The war was not fought with honorable fists. It was fought with fire and blood. You were not pulling the triggers. You were just fixing the bikes they rode to do it. You were just washing the blood money that funded the war. You told yourself your hands were clean. The rationalization got easier every single time, and that terrifies you now. Then came the Tuesday night with Twist. You rode with him to visit a dealer who had been shorting the club's payments. You thought it was just a warning visit. But to your absolute surprise, Twist did not even raise his voice. He just casually pulled a heavy hammer from his jacket and shattered the man's hand on a wooden table. The sickening crunch echoed in the small room. On the ride back, Twist calmly talked about his daughter's upcoming soccer game. The disconnect between the monster in that room and the father on the bike broke something inside you. Your wife, Marie, could not take it anymore. She packed her bags on a Wednesday. She left a note saying she loved the man you used to be, but she could not sleep next to the stranger you were becoming. Days later, your mother called. She asked if you were in trouble. When you lied and said no, she went silent. Then she said, "Your father was not a bad man. He just could not stop choosing the wrong things. I watched it happen so slowly, I did not notice until he was gone." The paranoia became a living, breathing thing. Unfamiliar cars parked near the clubhouse, a sudden influx of new customers asking too many questions at your garage. The FBI was building a RICO case. Decades in federal prison hung over your head for the fake invoices alone. 2 federal agents cornered you at a gas station. They knew everything, your bank records, the stolen property. They offered you immunity if you cooperated. You did not take the deal, but you knew you could not stay. You walked into Deacon's office and told him you were out. You were not a rat, but you were done. He did not fight you. He just nodded. The conditions were brutal. Leave the patch, leave the garage, leave the state. Never contact a member again. You handed Ratchet your vest, the 2 pounds of leather that cost you your soul. You packed your tools into a rusty truck and drove. When you finally crossed the state line into Nevada, a wave of profound, exhausting relief washed over you. You could finally breathe without tasting exhaust and lies. 3 months later, Ratchet called you on a burner phone. The feds had raided the club. 11 members went down. And the ultimate betrayal. Deacon, the untouchable president, had cooperated. The man who ran the Brotherhood like a corporation sold out his own brothers to save himself. The club died long before the feds arrived. Now, you live in a tiny town in Nevada. You fix lawnmowers and boat engines. It is quiet work, honest work. You met a woman who works in billing at the county hospital. She is completely, beautifully normal. When she asks about your past, you lie. You tell her you just needed a change of scenery. You realize that every relationship you build for the rest of your life will have a ceiling. You can get close to people, but never all the way. Because if they saw the truth, they would run. Some nights you stand on the balcony of your cheap apartment. In the distance, out on the dark highway, you hear the unmistakable sound of a motorcycle engine. The rumble builds, hits a peak, and fades into the desert wind. Your chest tightens. A ghost of a memory tugs at your heart. Because the truth is, the club never ran on crime. Crime was just the business model. The club ran on loneliness. Every single recruit was just a guy eating alone in a diner, waiting for someone to look at him and say, "You are one of us." That was the product. Belonging. And the price was everything else.